So let's talk about the Jacobins, the Society of the Friends of the Constitution. They are commonly known as the Jacobin Club and have at least 7,000 chapters throughout France with 500,000 members. At one point they were led by Maximilien Robespierre, Mr. Guillotine, who took over rule of this the new French Republican government, and they kept on rewriting the French Constitution, which got worse and worse as time went on. Under Robespierre, they hunted down and executed their opponents in this reign of terror, which was the guillotine era. After the March on Versailles, in October 1789, the Jacobin clubhouse, the first clubhouse they rented, was the Monastery of the Jacobins in the Rue Saint-Honore. The name Jacobins, given in France to the Roman Catholic Dominican order, the Society of Jacobins, Friends of Liberty and Equality. That's so Vatican. He's a friend of mine. He's a friend of ours. He's a friend of liberty. He's a friend of liberty and equality. We're friends of the Constitution. Alright, so the Jacobin Club successfully occupied the refectory, which is like the lunchroom, the library, and the chapel of the monastery, composed almost entirely of professional men such as Robespierre, or well-to-do class like Louis Philippe, a future king of France, and liberal aristocrats. So the Jacobins are Freemasons. This is the Roman Catholic way of replacing the monarch or elite class with yet another elite class that they could control. It's the Freemasonic Special People's Club that's rampant in American government and corporation today. You want to take down your the Royal Noble class? We'll put up a Royal Noble Parliament. You want to take that down and put up a republic with a Congress? We'll replace that with the Royal Congress, with all the little Freemasonic regalia, taking their orders from the same scumbags that murdered your forefathers and your foremothers and put your children in the earth. So I quote a well-known website here. After the fall of the monarchy, Robespierre became a central figure in the Jacobin Club, and his faction in the National Convention became known as the Jacobins, and sat together in the higher seats of the Convention's hall, uncertain over the war with Austria, which was basically the Roman Catholic stronghold of Europe at the time. Another quote from a well-known website. The Jacobins assumed more power during the spring of 1793 and held power until the summer of 1794, repeatedly killing those considered disloyal to the Republic in a program of execution called the Reign of Terror. In their last months, Robespierre was also guillotined. A primary reason for their influence or strength was that in the midst of the general disorganization in the revolutionary Paris and in the provinces, the Jacobins alone were organized. Yeah, I bet. The Jacobins excused their killing spree by stating that France required the discipline of terror to mold France into a united republic capable of resisting this double peril. On a side note, the early Americans also began to realize that the French Jacobins were infiltrating their Freemasonic lodges with what they said was Luciferian thought. The early Americans didn't understand that Freemasonry was controlled by the Roman Catholic Church at the top, and that Jacobins had direct ties to the Roman Catholic Church. A reverend named G.W. Snyder wrote George Washington with a warning and included a book called Proofs of a Conspiracy. George Washington wrote back to Snyder stating, I quote George Washington, "It was not my intention to doubt that the doctrines of the Illuminati and the principles of Jacobism had not spread in the U.S. On the contrary, no one is more satisfied of this fact than I am." So you'll notice when the Jacobins begin to take over the French Revolution, because things begin to get screwed up under their guidance. The leaders of the French Revolution go from doing what is right to going crazy under the Jacobins. The French started hacking everyone's heads off under Robespierre. The French started invading the rest of Europe under Napoleon. The National Assembly began redrafting the Constitution several times, resulting in less freedoms for the common people and more rights for the wealthy. The National Assembly, the new French government, even start changing how many hours are in a day, and they changed the whole calendar system because they start to get paranoid about everything having religious significance. So at first, understandably, the French take down the Catholic churches and street signs with Catholic names, but under the Kraft's control, they start to get crazy. They start to get so crazy that the hours in a day and the months in a year have subliminal religious significance. So all that has to go. So basically the new French government got hyper aware and programmed under the Kraft's leadership through the Freemasonic Jacobins. You always know when the Kraft gets involved because things are going a little bit crazy. They're a bunch of fucking nuts, man. The Freemasons are a bunch of fucking Roman Catholic controlled nuts of every religion. So Napoleon, alright, so after that, the French were manipulated under the leadership of Napoleon. Napoleon's a little ignorant piece of shit. Napoleon does not represent the French Revolution or liberty or freedom. He didn't even understand global politics and the world power structure. He may have been pretty smart on the battlefield as a general, but he ended up undoing everything the common French people accomplished through their French Revolution. So let's talk a little bit about Napoleon's military career. He basically fights the world's powers at that time. This is the late 1700s going into the 1800s when Napoleon takes power over France. So the European powers at that time are England, of course, with their dominant navy. There's Austria, the home of the Habsburgs, kind of the Germanic area. Germany is actually under control of France, but Austria is that power structure over there now, with heavy Roman Catholic influence in there. And there's Russia and Spain. So basically we have France versus England, Austria, Russia, and Spain. So Napoleon tries to front himself as a big revolutionary figure, and he's standing up against all these old powers of Europe controlled by these evil kings. However, in the middle of this, he is declared Emperor of France. So to say that he loses his way as a revolutionary leader would be a serious understatement. Alright, he starts off distinguishing himself on the battlefield by protecting France against England when England takes over a French port city, and he wins the battle. In In 1798, Napoleon invades Egypt, hoping to cut off British trade routes to India. He captures Alexandria, and then he goes to attack Cairo when the English Navy destroys his French fleet off the coast of Egypt. In 1799, he returns to France. In 1799, he returns to France, where he helps overthrow the parliament using the military, using his military and some parliament insiders. He takes over as head of state. In 1800, he takes his troops over the Alps to take the Austrians by surprise. He kills 12,000 Austrians, and he forces Austria and then England into signing a peace treaty. In 1801, he signs a document with the Pope making Roman Catholicism the dominant religion in France. And then he takes a central bank. So the Vatican begins to loan him money through the central bankers, where Napoleon builds parks, roads, bridges, canals, everything but what the French need: a better navy. Under all these loans from the Vatican, it appears that the economy revives under these powerful central banks. So in 1803, France, with the world's strongest army, only has England to fear, as England continues to dominate trade routes and have stayed out of the direct conflict with Napoleon as he wars with the rest of Europe. England has declared war on France, but they kind of stay out of the war while he fights everybody else. Both countries are wary of each other's strengths, and they don't get into a war until later on. In 1804, Napoleon decides that he also wants to be a king. So he invites the Pope, who comes over from Italy, and crowns him emperor. So France is no longer a republic, but back to being a monarch, with Napoleon as a gemperor. And the Catholic Church is back running things in France.